Hey everyone, Rho here. Today we're talking the gods of chaos. In this new darkened age, which one of them will rise to power? No need for a spoiler warning today, so we are just going to jump straight in. Well, as we know, the Ruinous powers are the true enemy of the Imperium, the beings of the Immaterium, who prey upon the emotions and souls of mortals. It was they who orchestrated the Emperor's downfall, throwing all of their combined might into breaking the Imperium before it had even truly begun. And though they failed in this gambit, they did enough to prevent the Emperor's goals from ever becoming a reality. And 10,000 years later, their time to rise has come once again, as the Immaterium floods out across the galaxy, binding the two realms closer than ever. Chaos is on the ascendancy, and the galaxy trembles. As ever with the gods of chaos though, allegiances are only ever temporary, and the great game amongst the gods already turns their forces against each other. So which of them is poised to rule? Which of the gods of chaos could dominate this new galaxy? Well, let's begin with Khorne, the blood god. Like the currents of the warp in which they exist, the power of the dark gods waxes and wanes. But if there was one who traditionally had been viewed as the stronger, it has been the Lord of Rage. Khorne is the embodiment of violence, anger, rage, bloodshed. All of it feeds the blood god's existence. And in a universe where there is only war, well, you can understand why Khorne thrives. Khorne and his forces are straightforward. There's none of Tzeentch's calculating, none of Slaaneish's show. With Khorne, it is all about the slaughter. And so that gives him a big advantage in many ways. His forces move from warzone to warzone, existing in a perpetual state of war, pausing only to build trophies to their lord from the skulls of the slain. As such, you could almost compare Khorne's blood legions akin to a tsunami, sweeping across systems bringing nothing but destruction. And the more the slaughter continues, the stronger Khorne's forces get. The more the blood flows, the easier it is for his demonic servants to break the barriers of the Immaterium, appearing on the battlefield in huge numbers. In straight out punching terms, it's hard to argue Khorne is not the strongest. Fed by warfare, existing in slaughter, this galaxy does nothing but further his cause, now more than ever. It's no surprise it was Khorne's forces who assaulted Terra in the days after the fall of Cadia. While perhaps he couldn't win then, the point was undoubtedly made. The blood god was coming. And for the first time since the heresy, the Imperial Palace itself was assaulted by demons. The blood god's demons. With Angron and his World Eaters about to return in a big way, expectedly taking centre stage, Khorne could well be about to press his slaughter on the galaxy anew, reaffirming to his fellow gods his prominence. Now, for all the blood god's advantages, he undoubtedly suffers disadvantages too. Being born of violence may endear him to thrive in war, but it also heavily constricts his viewpoint, and that of his forces. Khorne cares not from where the blood flows. Khorne's forces are equally likely to start butchering each other, as they are the enemy. And the blood god himself doesn't care either way. He's just as happy to see his own forces slaughtering each other. By his very nature, Khorne makes it hard to build on any victory or advantage, because the lust for blood and call for skulls simply never stops. Khorne doesn't exactly want victory, he just wants the slaughter. Unlike a Tzeentch who can plot and calculate, unlike a Nurgle who can operate beyond the battlefield, Khorne simply can't. Like a wildfire, his forces will keep burning until there's nothing left to feed off, ultimately burning themselves out. Interestingly, Khorne's greatest strength really is his greatest weakness as well. Yet in this galaxy of turmoil, Khorne certainly appears stronger than ever. Next we have Tzeentch, the Changer of Ways. Tzeentch of all the Dark Gods perhaps represents chaos the best. None can know the strands of fate that Tzeentch holds at his fingers. Every schemer, manipulator, being that lusts for knowledge and power in dark corners, feeds the Dark God's strength. And in a galaxy of untold trillions, he has a great many indeed. Tzeentch of all the Dark Gods operates behind the scenes, his schemes laid for years and centuries before coming to fruition. Entire worlds and systems can fall to the corruption of one powerful individual, attempting whisper unheard by any other. This way of nature really does give Tzeentch a huge advantage in terms of accumulating power. His minions able to bring vast portions of territory under his sway without the total reliance of war that Khorne needs, for example. Many times a governor or ruler could have fallen to Tzeentch's whispers without even knowing the fate he has written for himself and for his unknowing people. Of course too, in being able to perceive the strands of fate, Tzeentch and his minions are able to see futures before they even transpire. Able to see the smallest action here can push fate in a different direction. Again, a powerful tool to have in your arsenal. If you had to describe the current state of the Imperium in one word, unpredictable would certainly be a good shout. The darkness and fear many worlds cut off and alone feel leaves opportunity ripe for the Changer of Ways whispers, promising salvation and answers for those who are crying out. With the no pun intended chaos and turmoil existing across the galaxy, Tzeentch's ability to know where the currents of fate lead is quite simply invaluable. His forces able to claim worlds before other forces can even move, always thinking one step ahead of his brothers. While militaristically Tzeentch's forces may not be Khorne's, their power or sorcery is unmatched. And having perhaps the most powerful sorcerer in the galaxy under your sway, in Magnus the Red, is most certainly a big addition. Magnus can be a truly terrifying prospect for the Imperium when he chooses to be. Like all his fellow gods, however, for all of Tzeentch's advantages he suffers his own cons. Focusing so often on those possible futures, he too often ignores the present, taking it for granted. Schemes laid to unravel for a millennium are all well and good, but they count little if the world is obliterated a couple of days later by Khorne. And for all that ability in knowledge and sorcery, his forces lack the overwhelming physicality of the Blood God. In a straight up fight, only one winner is going to come out. Tzeentch can outthink him, but he cannot outfight him. Perhaps the same could possibly be said for his temptations. The argument could be made that Slaanesh has the wider appeal to the everyday mortal's whims. However, regardless, the Changer of Ways will always be one step ahead. Moving on next to Nurgle, the Grandfather. Now Nurgle's power is said to rise and fall the most out of all the Ruinous powers. When his plagues are running rampant, there are few who can match his power. But as a pestilent form of life and decay, when those diseases die out, so does his ascendancy. Like Tzeentch, I see Nurgle as having huge advantages away from any battlefield. His ability to spread disease and pestilence without the need for conflict can be absolutely devastating for the galaxy. And so you can see why Nurgle's forces so often claim territory within the galaxy, finding it far easier to claim a foothold when so many populations are crammed into overpopulated hives, the perfect breeding grounds for illness to spread. In the current climate of the galaxy, with so much communication and trade cut off, many worlds and systems have been left alone in their struggle for survival, left alone to the realities of starvation, famine and disease. When crying out for salvation from these blights, who would turn away the benevolence of the Grandfather, promising immunity from your woes? Like the Death Guard 10,000 years ago, only Nurgle can bring you immunity from such pain. Like his brother gods, you can see why Nurgle too is finding a growth in his fortunes, though admittedly he may be about to suffer a turn in that regard. With Mortarian's loss in the Plague Wars, Guilliman has forced out the Plague God's servants, and now Nurgle rushes to defend his won territories from his envious brothers. The winner of that conflict could well be the next god to claim centre stage. Alongside his brother Khorne, however, I'd say Nurgle definitely has an advantage on the battlefield. His force's durability nothing short of legendary, able to absorb and disregard wounds that would otherwise slay another. And despite Mortarian's loss in the Plague Wars, it's inarguable the Death Guard represents one of the Imperium's biggest threats. This traitor legion a truly formidable force to be reckoned with. Where their battles erupt, disease soon follows. Nurgle's forces may be about to face a period of remission, but it's only a matter of time before the disease blooms again. And finally, the Dark Prince, Slaanesh. Of all the temptations of the Dark Gods, none have as widespread appeal as Slaanesh. The Dark Prince corrupts from the base instincts, blinding and overwhelming his followers in desire. As such, it's logical to see why the cults of Slaanesh appear all over the galaxy. In existences of pain and suffering, the Dark Prince offers tantalizing dreams of salvation. Of all the worship of the Dark Gods, Slaanesh could well be the hardest one to eradicate. However, for that strength, therein lies its weakness. For the indulgence itself is often enough. See the elevated Demon Prince Fulgrim as the perfect example. Elevated to a power beyond compare, even more powerful than the Primarch he was, yet barely seen for the next 10,000 years, lost in his depravity. So for all the potential of Slaanesh, perhaps by its very nature, it can never truly take the prominence he should. The demonic forces of Slaanesh can be a devastating proposition, blinding mortals in their beauty, possessing speed and skill superior to any other Dark Servant. Shalaxi Hellbane, the Keeper of Secrets, is the undisputed champion amongst demonkind, even believed to be over Skarbrand himself. Created specifically for the purpose of defeating other greater demons, Hellbane is a beyond lethal opponent, undoubtedly one of, if not the greatest Chaos champion out there. With Slaanesh's ability to bring his kind of perfection to bear, you really have to ask when, not if, the Dark Prince will rise. When the rulership of the galaxy becomes the biggest temptation. For me, out of all the gods of chaos, I can really see the advantages and disadvantages to each of them. I can see the reasons why they would rise and why they may fail. However, if I had to nail my opinion to just one, the one which is most likely to ascend to prominence next, I think I would have to lean in the side of Khorne. Quite simply, with war racking the galaxy like never before, it really feels like Khorne is in the best place to push on that advantage. It feels like he truly would be in the strongest position at this moment. With Angron and the World Eaters about to return in a major way, we could just be about to see this time arrive. We could finally see the Blood God making his push for ascendancy, staking his claim on the galaxy. Now again, as I said earlier, his biggest weakness will always be himself. Simply happy to see the devastation rather than the glory. So maybe yes, he may never achieve the ultimate victory, but he most certainly can achieve dominance. And well, for me, I think the Blood God is the most likely. But as always everyone, what do you think? Which one of the gods of chaos is about to rise to ascendancy? As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below, I love to read them. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. With that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.